Two of the most explosive stories of this NFL offseason have just crossed paths in a scenario that no Eagles fan had considered. And the result could completely change who ends up with A.J. Brown and which team becomes the biggest threat to the Eagles in the NFC in 2026. A win-now team with a quarterback who may be playing his final season. A franchise that tried to make this trade back in March and came up empty. And a second name that entered this equation this week, a name you did not expect to see connected to this story, that could be even more impactful than the Brown trade itself. I am going to break down everything the Los Angeles Rams are planning this offseason, why A.J. Brown's name has resurfaced in conversations everyone thought were finished, and what that second name has to do with the future of the NFC. But first, if you follow the Eagles for real, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now, because the moves involving Philadelphia are coming from every corner of the league, and I never let any of them slip by. Let's get into it. Back in March, Los Angeles Rams general manager Les Snead publicly confirmed something that a lot of people had not fully processed. The Rams had seriously considered acquiring A.J. Brown from the Eagles in exchange for moving Davante Adams to another team. It was not a vague rumor. It was a confirmation from the GM himself that the idea existed, was discussed internally, and that the organization evaluated the move as a possible path to strengthening Matthew Stafford's offense. The trade never happened. Adams stayed in Los Angeles, and Brown remained in Philadelphia, at least for now, waiting for the June 1st date so that the deal with the New England Patriots can be made official without the most severe financial impact on the Eagles' cap space. But The Athletic's Rams reporter Nate Atkins was asked this week about a possibility that has been circulating again in league hallways. Could the Rams swoop in at the last minute and pull A.J. Brown away from the Patriots? The answer was direct, and it came with a second name nobody expected, Max Crosby. According to Atkins, the Rams' decision not to move off Adams was based on a very concrete fact. In the 2025 season, Adams was a red zone cheat code for Stafford, scoring 14 touchdowns in 14 games. 14 touchdowns. To put that number in perspective, that is the kind of production that turns a veteran receiver into an irreplaceable asset within an offensive system. When you have someone who converts red zone visits into points with that kind of consistency, you think very carefully before moving on, even if the replacement's name is A.J. Brown. Atkins's conclusion was clear. The Rams chose the present over the future. And according to the reporter, the discussions between the Rams and the Eagles on that scenario are over at this point. The widespread expectation in league circles remains that Brown will end up with the New England Patriots. But Atkins' piece does not end there. And this is where the story gets even more interesting for the Eagles and for the NFC as a whole. Matthew Stafford is 38 years old. In February of 2027, he will turn 39. And earlier this year, before confirming he would return to play in 2026, Stafford publicly signaled that he was thinking about retiring. It was a window of uncertainty that lasted weeks and put the entire Rams organization on high alert. In the end, he confirmed his return. On the same night, he was revealed as the MVP of the 2025 regular season. A detail that says a great deal about the level of play Stafford still brings, but one that does not eliminate the obvious question. What happens to the Rams when Stafford finally decides to walk away? It is exactly that tension between win now and long-term planning that defines the Rams' current moment and explains why Les Snead is always looking for high-impact moves. And it is in that context that Max Crosby enters this story a second time, this time as the main character. If you followed NFL news this offseason, you already know that the Max Crosby saga with the Las Vegas Raiders was one of the most surprising and frustrating storylines of the 2026 season before it even began. The Baltimore Ravens had agreed to a trade to acquire Crosby, one of the best pass rushers in the league, a player who consistently pressures quarterbacks, piles up sacks, and changes games with his presence on the defensive line. But the trade was reversed. The reason? The Ravens backed out after discovering a medical concern described as a degenerative issue in Crosby's knee. A trade that was practically finalized was undone because of a medical exam. That is the kind of situation that leaves a player in a very complicated position. You are marked by a health concern that your current team did not consider serious enough to block a trade, but that was serious enough to make the Ravens walk away. And now Crosby is back with the Las Vegas Raiders, a team that was clearly trying to move him, that has a new rebuilding cycle ahead of it, and that does not appear to have the kind of competitive roster around him that would justify keeping an elite pass rusher locked into a rebuild. According to an update published on Wednesday, teams could contact the Raiders about Crosby's availability in the coming months, particularly as the 2026 season unfolds. And Atkins was specific about who he thinks could be one of those teams, the Los Angeles Rams. The reasoning is simple and clinical. If the Raiders start the 2026 season with a record of 2 wins and 6 losses, or 1 win and 7 losses, the logic of rebuilding will dominate every executive decision Las Vegas needs to make. And in that scenario, Crosby, who still carries enormous market value despite the knee concern, would become available to a win-now team that needs immediate pass rush pressure. The Rams fit that profile perfectly. With Stafford still competing at a high level and a championship window that could close very quickly, Snead has the track record and the GM profile that makes this kind of aggressive move when the opportunity surfaces. Just look at the negotiations that brought Stafford from Detroit, and the entire philosophy of picks are just assets that defines how the Rams think about roster construction. Now, what does all of this mean for the Eagles? From the perspective of the A.J. Brown trade, Atkins' analysis confirms what sources in Philadelphia had already been saying. The Rams are out of the running. The expectation is that Brown goes to the Patriots after June 1st. And any alternative scenario would be a surprise, not a probability. But from the perspective of NFC competitiveness, the possibility of Max Crosby landing with the Rams is something the Eagles need to monitor closely. A Rams defense with Crosby alongside Jared Verse, the edge rusher who has already been one of the best young players at his position in the league, would be one of the most threatening defensive lines in the conference. And in an NFC that already has the Eagles, the Rams, and other contenders competing for playoff spots, any high-impact addition to a rival team shifts the balance of power in a meaningful way. But the medical question also exists. The knee concern that scared the Ravens does not disappear just because the Rams have a higher risk tolerance. It is a real variable that will determine whether any future Crosby trade makes financial and strategic sense. Snead, who is one of the most experienced GMs in the league at structuring creative deals, will certainly run his own calculations before making any move. What is clear is that the 2026 offseason still has many chapters ahead. A.J. Brown has not officially been traded. Max Crosby is still in Las Vegas. And the Rams, with a 38-year-old quarterback and a GM who never closes the door on a major move, remain the NFC organization most likely to surprise everyone before the season begins. For the Eagles, the message is straightforward. The NFC is not going to stand still while Philadelphia completes its own offensive transition. Every move that happens with the Rams, the Cowboys, and any other conference rival has direct implications for the road to the Super Bowl in 2026. Do you think the Rams could pull off a Max Crosby trade if the Raiders get off to a rough start? And would that make Los Angeles the Eagles' biggest threat in the NFC? Leave your take in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back later with the latest Eagles news. Fly, Eagles, fly!